Welcome back. The shooting in El Paso was an act of domestic terrorism. The goal was to kill Hispanics. The gunman had no idea if the people he was shooting were American citizens or whether they had the right paperwork to be in this country. He just wanted to kill people with brown skin. Then, as the country was reeling from that incident, the largest immigration raid in the country took place in Mississippi. Hundreds of undocumented workers rounded up, many separated from their children.
My dad didn't do nothing. He's not a criminal. Governments, please put your heart. Let my parents be free.
Now, I know from the mail I've received in the past and the mail I'm sure I'll receive after this show, many folks will say they're glad that illegals are being rounded up. But let me just say this. There is no such thing as an illegal person. That's just a term meant to demean them. And the other point I'd like to make are massive raids really the most effective way to deal with this issue? The people in this case were getting to work every day, going there inside a chicken processing plant, which I can guarantee you is one of the most disgusting jobs in the country. They work, they pay taxes, they send their kids to school. They are not the enemy. But as the president said on Friday, this is about creating fear, creating a deterrent.
I want people to know that if they come into the United States illegally, they're getting out. They're going to be brought out. And this serves as a very good deterrent. And when people see what they saw yesterday, and like they will see for a long time, they know that they're not staying here.
So how much fear is out there? That is the question for my guest, Melissa Tavares, who is with the Florida Immigrant Coalition. The coalition works with migrant groups across the state, especially here in South Florida. Melissa, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
So let's start with that question. How much fear is out there after these two incidents in El Paso and Mississippi?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of fear among our communities, a lot of concern, and we've been hearing about these fears for a very long time, ever since the president first launched this campaign of we're going to deport millions of people on his Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and we know that we had all of these threats of impending immigration raids across the country, specifically in 10 cities, including Miami. Ever since then, we've been hearing from our communities who are expressing fear. They want to know if it's safe to go to work, safe to take their kids to school. I remember getting a call from a young lady from Homestead asking if it was safe to take her little baby up to Miami to visit the doctor. So the fear is real. And then, unfortunately, what happens this weekend really exacerbated the problem, because obviously people, Black and brown folks, are really being targeted, and so the fear is absolutely real.
And this goes whether you're a legal U.S. resident, citizen, or if you're not. You wonder, worry. I've heard from friends of mine who say they're worried that they could be rounded up in a raid themselves.
Well, yeah, we've been hearing just from people of color, regardless of status, expressing their fear of being potentially racially profiled. And look, even here in Miami-Dade, under the detainer policy that was enacted a couple of years ago, we know that a U.S. citizen, for example, in Monroe County was actually detained on this detainer request and held because he was suspected of being undocumented. So the fear is tangible, not only among undocumented communities, but also Black and brown people. There's obviously a high tension, a rhetoric of racism and anti-immigration that's coming from the administration that's inciting a lot of these fears. And what's really saddening is that we've heard so much from this administration in terms of we really want to focus on criminals, on criminal immigrants, etc. However, on these roundups, and even when the threat was happening, they were just specifically looking for people who had orders of removals or 17-year-olds who had aged out. So nowhere do they say that they're prioritizing these alleged criminals. What they're doing is, like what you mentioned, disrupting our workforce. They're going after people who are just working, trying to take their kids to school, paying taxes, and trying to find a way to adjust their status.
Well, one of the things I always find amazing, like for instance with the raids in Mississippi, raiding these chicken processing plants, and again, that is not pleasant work. You know, it just is. There's no way it is. So instead of seeing all of these migrants being moved into vans and the rest of it, why aren't the owners of these facilities? Why aren't the people who are doing the hiring? Why are they not the ones being targeted and arrested? Look, we all know, and one of the worst parts of this is that if you're undocumented, you can also be exploited by workers, by rather bosses who can take advantage of your status. Nobody wants to see that either. But, you know, it seems as if the point here is to sort of create the images that we've seen now of children crying, of families being broken apart, to send a message, I guess, to Mexico and elsewhere, don't come here because this is what you're going to face.
Right. Well, unfortunately, it's what we're seeing. It's disrupting, and it's going to potentially disrupt our economy as well. I mean, look, you're talking about these jobs in Mississippi that were not the most attractive jobs. Even here in South Florida, we have agricultural workers working in Homestead. We have so many immigrants who are doing the work that we need to really continue to fuel this potential powerhouse that we have in terms of an economy in the country. The only thing that we're seeing is that these policies are going to disrupt our workforce and potentially affect our economy.
What was your reaction when you heard about the shootings in El Paso?
I mean, it really made me very sad. It made me very, very sad, and also just concerns me because there's this rhetoric, this horrible rhetoric coming from our administration, coming from the officials that are supposedly poised to protect and do the best for the interests of the country, and really just to see how there's this continuous incitation of violence and of fear, and really just to look at what's happening in the country. The divisiveness is very concerning. It's very saddening, and just the fact that we're having to deal with this is really something that I would never expected.
Do you, you know, the debate has been whether or not the president bears any responsibility for what happened in El Paso. What's your view on that?
Well, I mean, obviously these people are sick. The shooters are the people who are fundamentally responsible for the shooting. However, there is, and we know and we've heard, very, very strong anti-immigrant, racist rhetoric coming from the administration. And we've all heard the reports that even the shooter in El Paso used very similar language to what the president uses. So we don't know fundamentally what was going on in the minds of these shooters, and they are the responsible ones. But when we're facing an administration who isn't feeding into unifying the country, isn't feeding into what's in the country's best interest, and is frankly going against what most of the country is looking for, which is to stay in a country that is strong, that has a strong economy with a strong future. It's extraordinarily concerning.
You heard what I said at the outset, talking about, you know, there are a number of people who are going to be listening to this, who are going to watch this, who are going to think that, you know, again, when it came to the raids in Mississippi, if you're in this country illegally, then you deserve to be rounded up. You deserve to be thrown out of the country. What do you say to them?
I would love to have the conversation about the rule of law, because the fact is both the Constitution and international law allow for refugees to seek asylum at legal ports of entry. It's a protection under the Constitution. So when you're going against potential refugees and when you're eroding the asylum processes, you're really going against the law in and of itself.
But a lot of the folks who are here in South Florida, who are rounded up in Mississippi, they've been here for years. Many of them their children have been born here. They've been here so long, working, part of the community. You know, should they not have tried to make themselves legal during those intervening years?
You know, Jim, it's really easy to, I think, say that. Myself, I was born in New Jersey. It's really easy to sort of come to those conclusions when you come from such a humongous place of privilege. It's really a privilege to be born in this country, not have been born in, for example, the Northern Triangle, facing brutal violence, facing constant threats, or facing some sort of a disaster. We are privileged in that we grew up in a country and we're born in a country and have this documentation. But some people don't have that privilege. Some people don't have have access to the funds required, which are very expensive to sometimes adjust their statuses. But that doesn't mean that they're doing something wrong. It's a reflection of the desperation that many of the people feel.
Melissa Tavares, I really appreciate your coming in. I'm sure we'll continue this conversation in the days, weeks, and months to come, unfortunately. We'll be right back after the break.